the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And that covenant that God made with Abraham, we see it continuing. Remember, that was a promise of people and of land. But now we're some generations past Jacob, and we're in the book of Exodus, and this takes place in Egypt. The people of Israel are enslaved by the Egyptian Pharaoh, and right away at the beginning, we hear that God notices how miserable and oppressed his people are and remembers the covenant. Again, this promise of an enormous people, an enormous family, and a promised land. So part of the promise is now fulfilled. There's lots of people. Half of it is there. But they are very far away from the promised land. And so Exodus, the second book of the Bible, the first book is Genesis. Exodus is about their dramatic exit from Egypt to the promised land. So one thing for us to notice this morning, big picture look, is that God works kind of slow sometimes. God made that promise to Abraham, and it still has not yet come to fruition, and we're all the way to Moses. It has taken some real awful detours, Egypt, slavery, oppression. I don't know why these detours happen. The Bible doesn't let us know why God sometimes works, from our perspective, real slow. God's timing indeed isn't our timing. I suspect when we get to heaven, that might get sorted out. So that's a big picture look, but now I want to direct our attention to a small sequence from the reading that we heard today. I want to talk about that burning bush. That bush on Mount Horeb. Moses is a shepherd at this point in his life. He has his flock, and he leads them beyond the wilderness. My guess is they're looking for a better place for those sheep to graze. So he goes up the mountain. He sees this bush that is burning, and yet it is not consumed. Then the Bible tells us that Moses talks to himself and he says, I must turn aside and really look at this great sight and see why the bush has not been burned up. So in my mind, it's kind of like when you walk past something shiny on the sidewalk, you kind of look and then you're like, ooh, money, maybe? You look again. Or maybe it's like when you're driving in your car and you see an accident up ahead, and so you notice it, and then as you get closer, you really turn aside to try to get a good look at what has happened. The key here is that that bush, that burning bush, really caught Moses' attention. So much so that he had to take a second, longer look at that bush. And then what happens? During that second look, that's when God calls to Moses. The Bible tells us, when the Lord saw that Moses had turned aside to see, God called to him. And this gives us plenty to mull over. That maybe in our lives too, God waits until our attention is locked in before God will call out to us. That maybe in our lives too are burning bushes, wondrous sights that make us so curious about this world, and that when we are stopped, looked up, and curious about something amazing, we're so attentive and we're in a place where we can hear God speak to us. Now granted, Moses was really lucky. A burning bush that doesn't get burned up. Who doesn't spend some time to look at that? And God spoke so clearly, Moses! That Moses instantly knew it was God. Moses was real lucky. And of course that's a little tongue-in-cheek because we know what God asked him to do. Stand up to the scariest man on the planet. Moses was real lucky, and he fought really hard for that luck to change, and that did not work. Maybe something else that caught your attention in the reading today was God's name. It's a bit on the strange side. I am who I am. I don't find that very clear. Other scholars translate it as, I am who I will be. Okay then. I want to show you a video. I found this helpful. It's created by the work of the people. I've used their videos before. It's kind of like a love letter from the God I am to you. It draws upon that everlasting name of God that God shared with Moses. I am. And the words are about what I am does. So while you watch, one suggestion from me this morning is to see what catches your attention. See what catches your attention about the God named I am. Because as we see from Moses, when something catches our attention, something very powerful just might be about to happen. So here's the thing, when something catches our attention, it can't get any more now and present than that. There's always a new now, like when the video put into parentheses, and now. When your attention is grabbed, you become fully present in the now. Might that be why God chooses to speak at those moments? Our whole nation's attention was grabbed Monday morning. We looked up and we saw Las Vegas. And what happened Monday morning for you as your attention was grabbed? I bet you said more prayers Monday morning than you usually do. I bet when you came home to your family, a different kind of gratefulness filled your heart. Maybe fear crept in. Maybe you thought through a few more layers of the thorny issue of guns. Perhaps you were completely in awe and transfixed on the stories of the police and the first responders. And maybe you too weren't just overwhelmed by the violence, but also the stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary acts of bravery and kindness for people whose names they didn't even know. Wouldn't that be the way God speaks? That love and kindness would be much louder and last much longer than 11 minutes of violence. So in a big nation attention-grabbing moment like Las Vegas, and in small moments noticed just by each of us, something very real is very true. God is still God now. God is still God now. I am is always present. And the God who noticed the oppressed Israelites and made a way for their redemption is the same God who, in the moments when your attention is caught, speaks to you, just like he spoke to Moses. And you may be as lucky as Moses and will feel a nudge and a call to something that really freaks you out. Or you may receive what all God's children receive, the love and the kindness necessary to make it through a wretched moment. But it is certain God is still God now. I am is always present. And God will keep grabbing our attention, and God will keep speaking to us now and forever, because there's still oppression. And as we saw this week, there is still unspeakable violence. And God needs his people to be his love and kindness. You've been called and chosen by God in your baptism. So I am is wherever you are. Amen.